What really happened in the end? Did Malcolm reclaim what was stolen from him? Or did betrayal win? The next episode will expose the full truth. Sit back, relax, and let the story unfold. Subscribe to Mirawealth Stories for more emotional and life-changing stories. Like, comment, share, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next episode. The truth came from an unexpected place. Mrs. Evelyn Carter, their old neighbor, knocked on Marcus's door one afternoon. "I heard," she said simply. He let her in. She brought food. Warm. Familiar. "You know," she said gently, "your mother once told me you were the strongest one." Marcus scoffed. Funny way of showing it. Evelyn nodded. "Fear makes people choose wrong." She paused. "But love doesn't steal." That sentence cracked something open. For the first time since everything fell apart, Marcus cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough to let the weight fall. Evelyn placed a hand on his shoulder. "This isn't the end of your story." Marcus wiped his face. "Feels like it." "No," she said firmly. "It's the part where you stop begging for love from people who only value you when you're useful." Those words stayed with him. That night, Marcus opened a notebook and wrote one sentence. "I will never earn love again." It wasn't anger. It was liberation. Marcus learned what silence really sounded like when survival became loud. The mornings were the hardest. He woke up early out of habit, his body still wired for responsibility, even though there was nowhere to go. No meetings. No drivers calling. No contracts to manage. Just the hum of an empty apartment and the ticking of time reminding him that rent didn't care about betrayal. He took temporary work, warehouse shifts again, the same kind of job he once used to support his family quietly. No one recognized him. And strangely, that helped. At lunch breaks, he sat alone, eating cheap meals, listening to coworkers complain about bosses and money. He didn't join in. Pain had taught him discipline. At night, Marcus worked on something new. Not a business yet, just a plan. He wrote down everything he did wrong. Trusting without boundaries. Mixing family with contracts. Believing loyalty was mutual. Then he wrote what he did right. He built something from nothing. He survived betrayal without becoming cruel. He walked away instead of begging. That last one mattered most. Across town, Holloway Freight Solutions began to crack. Terrence wasn't Marcus. He didn't understand logistics the way Marcus did. He didn't know which contracts required flexibility and which demanded precision. He ignored small warnings. Drivers quit. Clients complained. Money leaked. And Leonard, for the first time, began to worry. The letter arrived quietly. An audit notice. Terrence waved it off at first. "Routine," he said confidently. But Marcus had always kept immaculate records. Terrence hadn't. Expenses went undocumented. Funds were moved hastily. Personal spending blended with company money. Leonard confronted Terrence late one night. "You told me you had this under control," Leonard said sharply. Terrence snapped back. "Marcus made it look easy. That don't mean it was." That sentence lingered. For the first time, Leonard felt doubt, not about Marcus's loyalty, but about his own judgment. Meanwhile, Marcus received a call from Harold Jennings. "You might want to sit down," the lawyer said. Marcus listened as Harold explained. "There's evidence of mismanagement. Serious evidence. If the audit deepens, this could turn criminal." Marcus closed his eyes. "I didn't do anything wrong," he said. "I know," Harold replied. "And that's exactly why they're nervous." The truth was circling. Slowly. Inevitably. Rumors don't start loud. They whisper. A former client called Marcus privately. "I shouldn't be saying this," the man said, "but things aren't stable over there." Another reached out days later. Then another. Marcus didn't celebrate. He observed. He had learned that justice doesn't rush. It waits until lies collapse under their own weight. One evening, Denise showed up at his apartment unannounced. She looked smaller, tired. "We didn't know it would go this far," she said. Marcus leaned against the doorframe. "You knew enough." Tears filled her eyes. "He's your father." Marcus nodded. "And I was your son." The words landed heavier than anger ever could. Denise left without asking for forgiveness. And Marcus didn't offer it. Some wounds don't bleed loudly. They starve trust slowly. Terence moved out after an argument with Leonard that ended with silence instead of shouting. Alana kept her distance. Denise tried to hold things together but finally admitted, quietly, painfully, that she didn't know how. 4 years, she had chosen calm over courage. And calm had cost her her son. Marcus didn't celebrate their unraveling. He simply stopped carrying it. In the spring of 2026, Marcus met Renee. She worked at a non-profit he consulted for, sharp-minded, direct, kind without being invasive. She didn't ask about his past right away. She paid attention instead. One evening, she said, "You're careful with people." Marcus nodded. "I learned the hard way." She didn't push. That was new. When he finally told her the truth, about his family, the business, the betrayal, she didn't flinch. She said only one thing. "That shouldn't have happened to you." No defense. No minimizing. No, but their family. Just truth. Marcus realized something then. Love doesn't require you to bleed to prove loyalty. It requires safety. And for the first time, love felt light. 2 years later, Marcus stood in his office, smaller than before, but entirely his. On the wall hung one framed sentence. "Access is earned, not assumed." His consulting firm thrived quietly. No headlines. No ego. Just integrity. He hadn't spoken to his father in over a year. Denise sent a card on his birthday. It said, "I'm learning." Marcus placed it in a drawer. Some healing happens without reconciliation. Some endings don't circle back. They move forward. On a warm evening, Marcus sat on his balcony, city lights flickering in the distance. Renee beside him. Peace around him. He thought about the boy he once was, waiting to be chosen, and the man he became, choosing himself. Marcus smiled. He had loved his family, but they never did. And somehow, he still won. The Holloway house had never been silent like this. No laughter from Terence's old room. No television noise from Denise's favorite shows. No sense of control in Leonard's voice. Just ticking clocks and unanswered questions. Leonard sat at the dining table one morning, staring at unopened mail. Bills. Legal notices. A final warning from the bank. The house that once symbolized authority now felt like evidence. Denise stood at the sink, washing the same plate twice. "We should call Marcus," she said softly. Leonard didn't answer. For the first time in decades, he didn't know what to say. Leonard's reputation had been built on certainty. At church, at work, at home, he was the man with answers. Now, people avoided eye contact. A former colleague crossed the street to avoid him. An old friend declined his call. A pastor asked him not to lead prayer, for now. Humiliation didn't arrive dramatically. It arrived quietly. Leonard began replaying moments he once dismissed. Marcus standing silently during arguments. Marcus paying bills without being thanked. Marcus asking careful questions that Leonard shut down. Leadership, Leonard realized too late, wasn't dominance. It was discernment. And he had failed at both. Denise visited Marcus's apartment one afternoon, unannounced. She stood outside the door for a long time before knocking. Marcus opened it calmly. "I won't stay long," she said quickly. They sat across from each other. Distance measured, intentional. "I thought keeping peace meant protecting you," Denise whispered. "But I was protecting myself." Marcus listened. He didn't interrupt. "I watched your father take from you," she continued. "And I said nothing because I was afraid of what would happen if I did." Her voice broke. I lost you anyway. Marcus exhaled slowly. I needed a mother, he said. Not a bystander. Denise nodded. Some apologies come too late, but still matter. Terrence's life unraveled faster than anyone expected. Without Marcus to stabilize things, his poor decisions caught up with him. Creditors sued. Friends disappeared. His bar venture officially collapsed. One night, drunk and desperate, he showed up at Leonard's door. You always chose him, Terrence shouted. Leonard stared at his son. No, Leonard said quietly. I chose wrong for both of you. Terrence laughed bitterly. Then enjoy the silence. He left that night and didn't come back. Leonard finally read Marcus's old notebooks, the ones he found while packing files. Careful notes. Risk assessments. Ethical reminders. One page stood out. If they only love me when I provide, they don't love me. Leonard sat down hard. That sentence crushed him more than any lawsuit. He realized something devastating. Marcus hadn't abandoned the family. The family had abandoned Marcus long before he walked away. Months later, Leonard visited Marcus, not to demand, not to argue, just to face him. I don't expect forgiveness, Leonard said. I just needed to say I was wrong. Marcus studied him. I believe you, he said. Leonard's eyes filled with tears. That doesn't mean we rebuild, Marcus continued. It means I'm done carrying your mistakes. Leonard nodded. For the first time, he accepted limits. The Holloway name never fully recovered. No public scandal. No dramatic collapse. Just diminished influence. And quiet accountability. Denise volunteered at a family counseling center, trying to help others avoid the silence she chose. Leonard downsized his life. Terrence moved cities. And Marcus flourished. Not loudly. Not to prove a point. But freely. One evening, Marcus and Renee hosted a small dinner. Laughter filled the room. Not forced. Not strategic. Real. Marcus raised his glass. To chosen family, he said. Everyone smiled. Some people teach you love by giving it. Others teach you by withholding it. Marcus learned from both. And he never begged again. Marcus didn't rush into fatherhood. When Renee became pregnant, it wasn't fear he felt, it was awareness. He knew how much damage silence could do. Their daughter, Amara, was born on a rainy Tuesday morning in 2029. Marcus held her carefully, as if gentleness itself were a lesson he had to learn. She looks like you, the nurse said. Marcus smiled. I hope she doesn't grow up feeling like me. Renee squeezed his hand. She won't. As Amara grew, Marcus paid attention to the small things. How children absorb truth long before they understand language. He spoke openly. He apologized when he was wrong. He never used fear as authority. One evening, when Amara was 6, she asked a question that froze him. Daddy, why don't we see your parents? Marcus sat with her on the couch, choosing honesty without bitterness. Because sometimes people hurt others, he said gently, and instead of fixing it, they pretend it didn't happen. Amara thought for a moment. Did they hurt you? Yes. Did you hurt them back? Marcus shook his head. No. I chose to protect myself instead. She nodded. That was enough. Denise saw pictures of Amara on social media, through distant relatives, never directly. A child with Marcus's eyes. Renee's smile. A life she wasn't part of. She once asked Leonard, do you think he'll ever let us meet her? Leonard didn't answer right away. I don't think it's about punishment anymore, he said finally. I think it's about safety. That truth hurt more than anger ever could. Leonard wrote letters he never sent. Apologies he rewrote a dozen times. But words don't rebuild trust when actions were loud for too long. They remained grandparents in theory, but strangers in practice. And that, too, was a consequence. Terrence resurfaced years later in a different city. New job. New circle. Same avoidance. He told people he was estranged by choice. That Marcus had changed. But sometimes, alone at night, Terence remembered moments he couldn't rewrite. Marcus covering bills. Marcus fixing mistakes quietly. Marcus leaving without destroying anyone. The guilt didn't scream. It whispered. Terence never reached out. Some people avoid the truth because it requires humility. Marcus's success never returned to its former scale. And he was glad. He chose balance. Time with Renee. Afternoons with Amara. Consulting work that ended before dinner. He mentored young entrepreneurs, especially those carrying family pressure. One young man once asked, "How do you know when to walk away from family?" Marcus answered honestly, "When staying costs you your dignity." That answer spread. Quietly. Like healing does. At 45, Marcus stood at Amara's school event, watching her speak confidently on stage. She wasn't afraid to be seen. She wasn't shrinking. She wasn't waiting to be chosen. Renee leaned toward him. "You broke the cycle." Marcus exhaled. "No," he said softly. "I refused to pass it on." That night, he wrote one final note in his old notebook, the same one that once held pain. Love should not require self-erasure. He closed it. Some stories don't end with reconciliation. They end with correction. Years later, when Amara was old enough to understand more, Marcus told her the full story. Not with hatred. Not with drama. Just truth. She listened quietly. Then she said, "I'm glad you chose me." Marcus smiled through tears. "So am I." Marcus loved his family. That part of the story never changed. But love without protection is not virtue. It's vulnerability without boundaries. The Holloways never rebuilt what they broke. But Marcus built something better. A life where love stayed. And that was enough. By the time Leonard turned 74, the Holloway house felt too big. Rooms echoed with memories instead of voices. Furniture stayed where it had been for decades, but nothing felt anchored anymore. Leonard moved slower now. His hands shook slightly when he poured coffee. His pride, once loud, had softened into something quieter. Not humility exactly. More like awareness. Denise noticed it first. "He doesn't argue anymore," she told a friend. "He just sits." They downsized a year later. A small apartment. One bedroom. No porch. No authority attached to the address. Leonard carried only one box himself. Inside it were old papers. And Marcus's notebooks. Regret didn't arrive like punishment. It arrived during ordinary moments. Leonard would watch a father teaching his son how to ride a bike and feel his chest tighten. He would hear laughter between grown sons and fathers and realize he had never learned how to stay gentle when power was an option. One afternoon, Denise asked quietly, "Do you think Marcus knows we're sorry?" Leonard stared at the wall. "I think knowing doesn't change what it costs him to be near us." That truth finally landed. They hadn't lost Marcus because he was unforgiving. They lost him because he was finally honest. Denise fell ill first. Nothing dramatic. Just time catching up. In the hospital, she asked Leonard for one thing. "Write to him," she said. "Not to ask. Just to tell the truth." Leonard hesitated. What if he doesn't respond? Denise smiled faintly. "Then at least we won't pretend anymore." They wrote together. No defense. No explanation. No expectations. Just acknowledgement. "We failed you. We chose comfort over courage. We loved you, but not well." Leonard mailed the letter himself. They never received a reply. And for the first time, Leonard understood that silence could be an answer without being cruel. Marcus received the letter on a quiet Thursday. He didn't open it right away. He already knew what it would say. When he finally did, he read it once. Then again. He didn't feel anger. He didn't feel triumph. He felt something gentler. Release. Renee asked, Do you want to respond? Marcus folded the letter carefully and placed it in a drawer. No, he said. Some things don't need continuation. He didn't hate them. He simply no longer lived in their story. Denise passed away 2 years later. Marcus heard through a cousin. He attended the funeral quietly, standing at the back. Leonard saw him. Their eyes met. No confrontation. No embrace. Just acknowledgement. That was enough. Afterward, Leonard didn't approach. He finally understood that love, when it comes late, must respect boundaries it once ignored. Leonard lived alone after Denise's passing. He volunteered occasionally, read more, spoke less. He told no one about his greatest regret. But sometimes at night, he whispered it to the ceiling. I should have protected him. Those words stayed where they belonged. With him. Marcus grew older, surrounded by something Leonard never built. Consistency. Amara grew into a confident woman who trusted her voice. Renee remained steady. Their home was calm. Marcus never pretended the past didn't exist. He simply didn't let it lead. One evening, Amara asked, Do you ever wish it was different? Marcus thought carefully. No, he said. I wish I had learned sooner. Years later, Marcus walked past the old Holloway house. Someone else lived there now. Children played on the porch. Laughter floated into the street. Marcus smiled. Not bitterly, not sadly, just knowingly. He had loved his family. They never loved him the way he needed. And still, he lived a full life. Some endings don't come with reunions. They come with peace. People assumed Marcus had moved on. They said it like healing erased memory. It didn't. Sometimes, late at night, Marcus still wondered who he might have been if love had been easier. If protection had come without cost. If his parents had chosen him even once. Publicly, clearly, without hesitation. Those thoughts didn't control him. They visited, and then they left. Healing, Marcus learned, wasn't forgetting. It was remembering without bleeding. Amara noticed things other children didn't. How her father paused before responding to raised voices. How he asked questions instead of assuming. How he never used shame as correction. One day she said, My friends say their parents don't listen. Marcus replied, Then you listen to yourself louder. She carried that advice into adulthood. Not loudly, but firmly. Marcus watched his daughter move through the world without shrinking, and knew the cycle had truly ended. At a community mentorship event, a young man once asked Marcus, Do you regret cutting them off? Marcus answered slowly, I didn't cut them off. I stopped cutting myself to keep them comfortable. The room fell quiet. Truth often does that. Years after Leonard's passing, a distant relative reached out. We're doing a family history project, the message read. We'd like your input. Marcus stared at the screen. Then he declined. Some stories don't need revision. They need acceptance. One evening, Renee asked something gentle but heavy. If they had changed earlier, would things be different? Marcus thought for a long time. Yes, he said honestly. But they didn't. And I can't build a life on hypothetical love. Renee nodded. That was the difference. She didn't argue with his truth. She respected it. Marcus learned many things in his life. How to build businesses. How to rebuild himself. How to choose peace without guilt. But the last lesson came quietly. Love that costs you your dignity is not love. It is a debt that never gets paid back. He taught that lesson without preaching. By example. Near the end of his life, Marcus was asked to write a short reflection for a mentorship journal. Just one paragraph. He wrote, I loved my family deeply. They could not love me safely. So I learned to protect myself without hatred. And I built a life where love stayed. That paragraph outlived him.